Until next time.
This is Legacy 1891, preserving the past for the future.
Hello, everybody. I'm Latif Tarik. I'm Associate Professor of History here at Elizabeth City State University. And today we are co-hosting the Legacy 1891 podcast. So they want me to kind of talk to you all so that way you can understand who I am and actually what we do here at Elizabeth City State University. So a little history about myself. I'm Associate Professor of History. I just attained tenure last year in the history program at Elizabeth City State University, and I come here from Howard University and working at the U.S. Army Center of Military History. However, prior to coming to the history program, I was actually the university archivist for a year and working as a lecturer in the history program before I moved over to a tenure track position. So we're here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about why we love history. And this podcast is going to help to facilitate between the campus, the university archives, the history program, and the broader community. So why do I love history? That is a big question. Really, all I can really say I was just born loving history as a little boy. Growing up, that was always my favorite subject in school, but also just really paying attention to like National Geographic and some of the historical programs that came on television. And I am from Portsmouth, Virginia, a very historical place built back during that of the colonial times, and I was always very intrigued about the various cemeteries in Portsmouth, Virginia, and a lot of the historical markers that was up throughout the city. So I was always impressed by, schools named after very famous people, such as I.C. Norcom, who the Norcom family is right here from Edenton, North Carolina. He came to Portsmouth, Virginia to help advocate education, for the free black community, sometimes after a few decades, actually, after enslavement. So I really don't have a deep dive into why I love history, but history has always been part of who I am as a person and be able to use it to reflect in the world that we live in and just learn about very incredible people, places, ideas, events that has happened. What you hope to accomplish with this podcast? So one of the things that I would like to do with this podcast is actually let the general public know what we do here at Elizabeth City State University. Primarily, I teach Africana study courses. We all teach general education courses in terms of world civilization, U.S. history, or African-American history. But one of the things that I would like to do is have an exploration of Africana studies here at Elizabeth City State University, as well as talk about some of the current topics of the day, historical events, related issues pertaining to people of African descent in America and throughout the African diaspora and U.S. history overall.
Hi there. I'm Glen Bowman, and I am a professor of history here at the Elizabeth City State University. I have been a proud member of the Viking faculty for starting my 27th year. I was hired back when Chancellor Mickey Burnham was still fairly new. He was actually one of the first people I met on my first day on campus when I was actually interviewing for the position. And 27 years have gone by very quickly. I came here after basically just becoming a new father, and I'm a father of three. My daughter, who was born while I was on the faculty here, is actually a graduate of Elizabeth City State University. I just brought her back to campus today to check out the new dining hall. She was very impressed with our new facilities here, and there's a lot to be excited about here. And I've seen a lot over the years. I've seen a lot of new buildings. As I walked here today to the studios, I was just thinking about all the changes we've seen in this campus during the last several decades. so many new buildings. This campus looked completely different back in the 1990s. And I'm proud to be a part of it. I think we're doing good things here. I think this campus is very important to this community. Why do I love history? It goes well beyond, of course, my time here. And it's one of those questions that's really hard to explain because sometimes you just get a feeling that something's right and something appeals to you. And when you're young, you don't understand why. But I've always done well in history when I was a student. I always enjoyed it. I remember in high school getting books. In those days, used to buy Barnes. We used to have a bookseller that was really cheap, about 20 miles away. And I remember going there and getting books. So I have some of those books in my library at home that I bought back in the 80s. So why I like history is just simply to be a part of me. I think history is important because if you don't understand history, you really don't completely understand your own identity. And I think that's true regardless of what field of history you teach. Now, with this podcast, over the last 12, 13 years or so, I have actually been focusing my own research on the history of this proud institution. And it started as just an adventure. And what I have learned in that time has completely changed, and in many ways, how I view the world. This campus has a distinct history. It's a history that no other campus has. I have read the histories of other universities, and I think theirs, to be kind, are rather boring compared to what's here. And that might seem a little bit overstated, but I think it's true. There's a lot that has happened here, and it's a great story of how we've overcome as an institution so much, and that so many times this institution was threatened. Its survival was in jeopardy. And yet something about this institution, the people, the students, the alumni, the faculty, something kept this place alive. And that to me is a fascinating story. So I'm going to use this podcast as a way to showcase some of the lesser known aspects of the history of this institution. This will include a lot of, hopefully, interviews with some members, some alumni from the past who can tell us some of their stories, among others. And I do hope this podcast can enlighten people. If they're currently Vikings, I hope this can help them understand more what we mean by Viking pride. If they're not students but members of the community, I hope the podcast helps them understand what a special place this is in this community and what this campus has done over the last 134 years. And if students happen to hear this, I hope students do, I hope they understand really how lucky they are to be part of a special place. So I thank you for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the coming podcast on this network.
Hello, my name is Paige Hendrickson, and I'm the University Archivist here at ECSU. I started here in September of 2022, so I'm fairly new compared to everyone else. So I've had to learn a lot about North Carolina history, and specifically Elizabeth City, since I did not grow up here. I'm actually from the Middle Tennessee area, and that's where I was before I started working here. So I'm also the university records manager, which is very different from archives, but basically still trying to preserve what we can to tell the Elizabeth City State University story. Why I love history, that again goes back to childhood, I suppose, like everyone else. Used to ride my bike down to the library and always learn whatever I possibly could, whether story time or different things. My hero was Indiana Jones, so I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was little. Now I feel I still am sort of like that. I just don't dig in the dirt. I dig in boxes and different rooms and things like that, and don't get as dirty. But I still dig up treasures, in my estimation. And ancient history is my favorite, but contemporary history is also very fascinating. Motivations behind different movements that happen, social movements. How an organization has changed and evolved, and the institutional memory that we try to capture, whether through the employees, documents, things like that. What I hope to accomplish is pretty simple, I feel, since I'm not what I would call professional historian or professor. I'm kind of an accidental or amateur historian in that the documents and records that we keep in the archives tell the story. And yes, I do have to learn that history, of course, and put it into perspective, but make sure that I also preserve those physical documents so that we do have these to tell the story to future generations. I also want to make sure that people understand what archives are and what they're not, more importantly, kind of what expectations you can have when you need to do research in archives, whether it is from a distance online or in person. The different types of archives that are out there, and how best to go about trying to find the information you're truly looking for. One of my personal passions has been family research and genealogy. We don't do a lot of that here, but we can definitely get you going in the right direction and make sure you have the resources you need.